Welcome to the Chaplain's Compass. This is a podcast for interfaith spiritual caregivers, and this is our first episode, and I am so happy you have found us and you are here. I am Alicia Tremaine. I'm a chaplain and an advanced care planning coordinator in Kentucky. Baptist Health, Kentucky is where I've worked for the last 10 years, and I've been a chaplain for almost 20 years now. I had to do some math this morning to try to figure that out, and it's hard to believe. But we are very happy to be able to do this podcast and that it's been supported by the Association of Professional Chaplains. They have seen the value in engaging with members and chaplains all over the world by funding this podcast, and we are so grateful to them for doing that. And I'm super excited to hosting this podcast with John Betz, my superstar co-host. And I would like, John, can you introduce yourself a little bit and maybe tell us something interesting that's happening in your life right now?
Hi, my name is John Betz. I'm a chaplain at Wellstar Health System. I've been a chaplain for over 18 years in a variety of locations, from the Army Reserve to hospice, which is where you and I first met.
Yes.
It was a hospice chaplain, Elise, in Kentucky, and worked in the pediatric context. And I just had my second son, so very happy about that. So
Congratulations.
we're trying to steal as much sleep and also get as much snuggles as possible.
Yes, absolutely. How is Big Brother adjusting, by the way?
He's doing well. He's doing really well. He was always very excited. In fact, he talked to the baby more than anyone else did when the baby was getting ready to come out and be born. So,
Aw, that's sweet. Well, thanks for making time for this podcast during all that. Super exciting. And I'm curious, John, I know we've talked a few times about this, but what is your hope or your vision for this podcast?
So one of the big pieces of this podcast would be, I would love to shed light on the great work that is happening throughout the world, throughout the globe. I have met a variety of different kinds of chaplains throughout the world. And for me, it was fascinating to listen to the various different models of chaplaincy, the different groups of people who are being ministered by chaplains.
Yes.
And also what I love about it is being able to see that there's also a very common language that all chaplains have. So it's being able to see what are the similarities, what are the differences, and how can we all learn from each other. So
I love that. Yes, there's so much diversity in chaplaincy, and at the same time, you feel like it's still a niche that, such a small group at the same time. Like, I remember going to my very first chaplaincy conference. I had been a chaplain for a few years at that point. And I remember the feeling that I had when I walked into a room and there were all these people who I felt like, these people get me. Like, they speak my language, as you said. They understand what I do. And that was so different for me because I was used to being not so much lonely, but feeling separate in some ways from other clinicians. So that was a great feeling. And for me, I hope that this podcast brings a little bit of that to people. Yes. Feeling that connection and engagement, feeling like these are my people, and hopefully it's intellectually stimulating for people and we learn things, but also that we feel connected and engaged with each other. That would be my biggest hope for this.
Well, it sounds like you've had a diverse background as well. What brought you into chaplaincy?
I came into chaplaincy straight out of seminary, but really it was almost by accident. Because I went to divinity school really thinking that I was going to teach. I wanted to either teach or do research. And I had done a very short internship as a chaplain in Atlanta while I was going to seminary at McAfee. And I found it valuable, but I didn't really have that as a plan for myself. I was still looking for PhD programs. And I just had a hard time really zeroing in on what I wanted to do. And also I got married. And I moved to where my husband was working with, he had a good government job. So I really didn't have many options around me for a PhD program. And I was trying to find a job, and being female in ministry, especially in my faith tradition, which is Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, there wasn't any option at the time. So the only option that I had really was a CPE residency internship. And I went into it just really trying to just get some experience and some time before I could find another job or a PhD program. But I fell in love with it. I felt like it was the right fit for me. It wasn't that simple, right? It took a while. But during that year, I really felt like this is where I belong and I am fit for this. I don't know, this is my calling, however you want to describe that. That's been my whole career. I know that's not everybody, but for me, it was right after school.
Oh, yeah. No, that's great. It is interesting to hear how various different people would find their way into chaplaincy.
Yeah, I know when I did my residency, I think I was the only one who was in a second career in my residency group. So I don't know what it is now. It'd be interesting to see if I think it's still very much a second career for a lot of people.
I think you're right. It is interesting to talk to different kinds of chaplains, especially when you go to the Association of Professional Chaplains conference, where there is just a lot of different kinds of people who attend that. Some people who, they're like you and me, we kind of stumbled into it right after seminary. Or
yes,
there's some where they decided to go down a different path following their first or second or third callings. So
some of the things that we have planned for the next few episodes, we want to talk with chaplains from other parts of the world. As you mentioned, John, we want to talk about chaplains who are involved in things that are happening that are new in our profession, in our vocation. So the new rubric and APC certification, maybe new chaplaincy programs that are available, and just chaplains who are doing different things that may be a little bit out of the box or a little different context than most. That's what we're hoping to bring. So we have several questions we want to ask them because selfishly, we want to learn too, and hopefully you all learn as well. What are you looking forward the most to, John?
Honestly, the discussions. I think a lot of the people that I've met throughout the years, I'd love to hear their thoughts on where do they see chaplaincy's identity, where do they see it going, what do they see as, where should our priorities be as we're leading the way in spiritual health? And just to be honest, I just want to hear a wonderful diversity of people. I think being able to give voice to as many people as possible, I think that's probably one of the best things and best opportunities that this podcast will have.
Yeah.
A great example is I remember when I went to the European chaplains, they called it a consultation instead of a conference, European Network of Healthcare Chaplains Consultation. And just being able to talk with a wonderful diversity of people, each in different places, and hearing their stories, hearing the places where they've been blessed, also hearing there's challenges. It made me hopeful for the future. So, and I'd love to be able to hear that from other places such as Africa, Asia, as well as Europe and South America, as well as America as well, North America. What about you, Elise? What are the areas where you're getting excited?
About, I think I am very curious to learn about chaplains who work in different models of healthcare and chaplaincy too. When you said about what is the future of chaplaincy, that makes me very excited as well. It makes me very hopeful to think there are so many changes in healthcare that we don't have control over, or that honestly have been somewhat detrimental to chaplains. Many more challenges, I think, in chaplaincy to be able to see patients and care for them in the way that we have done before. However, there are changes that can be initiated by chaplains ourselves, and that can be really positive, that we can take leverage, what's happening in healthcare and other places of chaplaincy. I'm talking about healthcare because that's where I'm at, but I know we have chaplains in so many different settings. I'm really looking forward to hearing other people's vision for the future of chaplaincy, and how can we be part of that and see that in a hopeful way, and to continue to promote chaplaincy to other people who are maybe coming out of seminary like we were, or considering it as a second career. How can we bring more people into the fold, and just make people more aware of this profession, because it is so wonderful. It is so meaningful, the work that chaplains do. And there have been times when I felt like maybe it wasn't valued enough, the work that I was providing as a chaplain. But when I look back over these last almost 20 years, I feel really grateful that I've been able to be part of this profession and that I'm part of this group. So I'd like for more people to know about it.
What would be something that you would want people who are going into chaplaincy to know that you wish you would have known?
It's a great question. So when I was first training as a chaplain, that residency that I mentioned earlier, where I was trying to find my way, I was really jealous, honestly, of nurses and doctors and other clinicians on the team. And part of why I was jealous is because they had a very specific way of knowing what to do and whether what they were doing was helpful.
Yeah.
So they had tasks that they needed to accomplish, problems to solve, interventions that once they provided the intervention, they could track very effectively if that was helpful or not. So they had a pretty good way of knowing if they were helping. Whereas as a chaplain, it was really hard for me to figure out, am I really being of any benefit? And what am I supposed to be doing here and there? And not being able to really feel like I can check a box at the end of the day and say I've accomplished something was difficult. But as time went on, I came to really appreciate the fact that in the flurry of all these activities going on around the person in receiving healthcare in my setting, in my experience, it was healthcare. So in the flurry of all the activity going around them and to them, I was somebody who could step back and really focus on the person that they are. And that accompanying, the companioning of that person is what really was the most meaningful thing. It was not accomplishing a task at the end of the day. It was really, and when I thought about, I would love to be a doctor or a nurse, it was really the relationship that was more compelling to me. And then I realized, well, that's what chaplains do. And I think that's really cool that we get to do that.
That's great. No, I agree. Well, it's funny. I briefly served as a clinical research coordinator for oncology for like 6 months. And I realized I was not cut out for it. This is in between when I was working as a chaplain fellow at Cincinnati Children's. And I briefly was a CRC. And so a lot of it was dealing with a lot of the behind the scenes work regarding oncology and printing out things, highlighting them, making sure that the doctors had the right information. But some of it included assenting and consenting to the patients and the adults. I loved interacting with the patients. I went from feeling like I was in the desert sitting in front of a computer to the lushness of trying to make sure that the patient and their family were receiving the right information, that they were getting their right informed consent, and that they knew what they were getting into. I knew that my tenure at being a CRC was not very long when I did that. For me, I think being a chaplain, one of the things that I wish I would have known in the beginning, so I came from a more conservative background. And so when I finished my theological education, my seminary degree, I still consider that I'm still doing the theological education today. The way that I picture it is a lot like when I'm feeding my brand new son. The way he drinks milk was he has his fist up near his face and the milk is coming in. He's like, I'm getting fed. Okay. But the tension that he has and try to hold on to it reminds me a lot how I was following seminary. I felt like I was just holding on so tightly to what I thought was right. And I needed to hold on to what I thought was orthodoxy, what I thought was fill in the blank, what I thought was right belief or right action. What I wish I would have known back then was how am I best loving others? And how can I do that as a chaplain? And meeting people, it's said all the time, but really meeting people where they are in terms of their own theological place. And how can I provide them the kind of spiritual care in their life settings? And in that way, rather than seeing people, as I once did, as a potential mission field, being able to see myself as a potential mission field, and hopefully I am able to provide the kind of compassionate care to others. So I wish I would have just had less of a bunker mentality approach to scriptures, to theology, and to the care of others. CPE really helped loosen my fist so that I could use it to hug people rather than hold on to my own stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the things that chaplaincy really teaches you is that it's not about you. And that's exactly what you're saying, because when you called in to meet with a family that has had devastating news or is going through a really serious circumstance that can be life-changing or life-threatening in so many ways, it's very easy to think about, oh my gosh, am I going to say the right thing? What do I need to do? How are they going to perceive me? And what you learn through CPE and also as a chaplain is that it's about them and it's being there with them and for them. They don't care about your performance. They're thinking about their own pain, and it's being that witness for their pain. And that really changes you as a person. And I think it helps me with everything that I do. Yesterday I was doing a presentation at a conference, and it's very normal to feel a little nervous before you speak. But then I reminded myself it's not about me, it's about them and what they are thinking about and going through, what they need to hear and what they need information about. So that's a great lesson in chaplaincy, but I think it's something that we practice and we learn every day still.
Oh, I completely agree. The ability for me to become more religiously literate and spiritually literate and be able to do theological exploration from the perspectives of others without having to insist that, oh, but what about this? Now it's approaching the care from a curiosity perspective of
Curiosity, that's a great word. Yeah.
wonder what's happening here. Well, that's interesting. Well, you said this. What do you think about this? It's beautiful because spiritual health and chaplaincy is certainly growing into increase of wisdom and research literacy. And so being able to talk about that they're afraid of the pathologization of chaplaincy, where we become more diagnosticians and we take what they perceive as the heart away from chaplaincy. The big question I have is, how are we able to gauge and track how is somebody dealing with their common term is deconstruction of their faith? How are they deconstructing their faith? Are they? A lot of times, like Kenneth Pargament and Julie Exline and others talk about spiritual struggle. And so how are they experiencing God, the demonic, themselves, their spirituality, their faith tradition?
And sometimes, it's hard for people to really talk about that with their own faith leaders or with their own families. So chaplains have a special role in that because we're able to hear that, and the individuals that we serve allow them to really process that and be honest about what's happening. Because yes, you cannot go through a crisis, whatever it is, and not have it affect your mental and the spiritual blocks that you've built.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there's certain words that we tend to use a lot as chaplains, and we make fun of them sometimes because we overuse them sometimes. But we like to say that we are a non-anxious presence and that we are trained to be a non-anxious presence. And we decided we were going to call that our debriefing time once we interview our guests, which we will have several guests coming up, to really think about, okay, what are the takeaways? What have we learned from this conversation? And as much as we like to make fun of non-anxious presence, I actually love that. I love that we provide a non-anxious presence. That's always been one of my favorite things about chaplaincy, is that you can walk into a room and everyone is so anxious and in a hurry and busy, and that we are able to provide that calm and that non-anxious presence.
I was listening to I think the person was a nurse, and they were talking about how much they appreciated chaplains because they walked in and they had the ability to simply be with the patient without an overt agenda. I mean, we have an agenda sometimes where people say, well, my agenda is that I don't have one. Well, okay. But yeah, being able to see, well, what does the patient need at this point? What is their, and being able to provide that in a way where they can explore, like what you said, areas that perhaps their faith tradition might go, oh, we don't go there. Sorry. Or their faith leader might say, so going really dangerously outside of our walls with those thoughts. So I can't follow you there. As a chaplain, unless it's getting outside of ethical or legal bounds, we're able to be with people in terms of, oh, okay, so you're struggling with your belief in X, Y, and Z. Absolutely. Okay, why? What's the source? Let's explore that.
Yeah, so if you're a chaplain and you're listening to this, I hope that you're feeling like, okay, this show is for me, because I hope that this is a place where you can feel, again, that connection and feeling appreciated and valued and being part of the conversation yourself, because we're all learning from each other. And if you're not a chaplain and you're interested in learning more about chaplaincy, hey, we welcome you too. Welcome to the table. We can learn from you too and talk about chaplaincy. And it's good sometimes to have not only the other team members' perspectives, but the individual perspectives too of the people that we serve. Absolutely. And there are ways that people can be engaged with our show too and be part of the conversation. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that. First, subscribing to this podcast, because that's how we're going to keep it alive. We're trying this thing. We are hoping that you find value in it. But to be able to keep it alive, we do need people to subscribe and to find it. And so sharing it with your chaplain friends giving us a like, a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. That goes a long way to helping us spread the word about the show.
Yeah, and if you have ideas or topics that you want to explore, we want this to be a collaborative effort with our listeners, with you, with each other. So please, we have a phone number you can call. You can call us at 502-536-7508. Feel free to leave us a voicemail. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear more of what your thoughts are. And if you have ideas, we're certainly open for suggestions. So,
yeah, please do. We'd love to hear from you. Now, one of the questions that we thought we would ask every guest when we have a podcast episode is, what's giving you life these days? Now, I know, John, you've just had a big life change. But what else is giving you life these days? How about that? Caffeine.
No, I'm kidding. Yes, caffeine. But honestly, being able to spend time with my wife and with my son, I'm so thankful that my workplace, Wellstar, has given me some paternity leave. So being able to take great advantage of that and spend time with them, and being able to spend time with my son as he gets out of school and gets into the summertime. I'm so excited to just have this time to invest in them. So what about you, Alicia? What's giving you life these days?
So my kids are also out for the summer. I have 2 boys, 13 and 10, and we're getting ready for all the summer things. So that's exciting too. But one thing that I'm doing something different right now. My sons take piano lessons, and their teacher is offering a 4-week piano lesson special for the summer, and I decided that I was going to do it. I took piano lessons as a kid, but it had been a long time, so I've had 2 lessons so far, and I am loving it. Like, I can't wait to go practice my piano every day.
Yeah.
I think part of it is, when you're learning something new, you get so involved in it. It's meditative in a way because you get immersed in what you're doing.
Yes.
And it's also just, remembering that part of me that I've neglected for a while, the music and playing music. So I've really enjoyed that. I've got 2 more weeks and then we'll see.
Oh, that's wonderful. This is one of my favorites. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. And I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. And when I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, so as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realized the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town, and their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world.
Oh, I love that. It's a great way to end. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We can't wait to hear your thoughts on this podcast.
Blessings.
Bye.